Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm with a very special guest, the one and only Blakk Soul. Here we
Yes,
go.
sir. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. I'm actually excited to talk to you, man. Like I listened to the so it's pronounced Joell Ortiz, right? I'm terrible with
Yeah, Joell Ortiz.
got it, dude. That album was fire because I've been listening for him for a while now, and I just sometimes I just never get like rappers' names down, so like I always hear it in my head
Ah,
out loud.
got you.
Fuck.
Make sure I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, dude. And how did you get that connection even? Because like you've been working with some big players in the game. And what I like to see is like when older rappers like build like real connections with like up and coming artists. I love to
hmm
see that. And I've seen you've done that with a few artists. So how did that one come to be?
Man, it's been a blessing to be honest. When I worked out my partnership with Mellow Music Group, he had already released some records through Mellow Music Group,
Mm,
and at the time he was working on it, finishing up his album titled Monday. And that was fresh off of the finalizing of our partnership. So he was in need of a hook for a certain song on that project. And so the owner of the label connected us and was like, well, I think Blakk Soul can deliver the type of hook that you're looking for. And then since we linked up on that, when it came time for me to finish my Take Your Time album, he was willing to give me a verse for the song, and it just worked out perfect.
dang. And
Yeah.
that his album he just released, that topped the charts also. It was like
Yeah,
number three
yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
I think it peaked at number two on the hip
Number
hop
two.
charts. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he had some crazy competition that week. It was like last week or something, but he had like Freddie Gibbs. He was up against him. I was like,
Yeah, that's who was at. That's who had held the number one spot down on us. So,
mm,
but man, it was just a privilege to be a part of that project. I've been a fan of theirs, Joell and Crooked Eye for a while. From the Slaughterhouse movement, and
mm-hmm,
you know, Joell also has his own experiences working with Dre. So it's been it was just dope to be a part of. I'm glad he reached out.
mm-hmm. So how long have you? So what age group are you in, by the way? Because I feel like you're on. I feel like you're on the younger side, but like you're be able to work with these bigger artists. So like, are you
I
like in
got a
a
young spirit, man. I got a young spirit. Yeah, I'm 32.
what? Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah, I'm
Dang!
32. I started this journey probably about 2008.
Wow. When did it
Yeah.
start? When did it start paying off for you then? Like,
Um, I'll probably say in terms of paying off, like once I started crossing over into like working with some of the more major artists was probably like around 2016, 2017.
mm. And
Yeah,
that's
so it
what
took some time. You got to put your
for sure,
10,000 hours in.
for sure. Do you follow the up and coming artists? Like I see that you like on Instagram you follow like Town Entertainment and like Ellis Prescott. Do you pay attention to, like the Little
I
Mosies?
try to I try to tap in to see what's going on, and a lot of times when I come back home and visit, like um, I reach out to a few of the local artists around and try to get some sessions in with them, get some records done, answer any questions that they may have, or even try to help contribute to maybe their knowledge of their recording process to help better it if I can in any way. So I try to
Mm,
be an open book for anybody that wants to learn, because I feel like I've learned a lot of things over the course of time that I put in for my career. And I'm not one of those people that believe in having to withhold that information. Like I like to share it as much as possible.
yeah, man. And it's crazy to hear some you say that because what I've been noticing, the one reason I started my podcast was because I didn't really see there being like a lot of music outlets for
hmm
Seattle,
hmm
and I've started to notice that there's like a lot of clickiness. But then it's cool to see like artists that have kind of solidified their name to say like, oh yeah, I'm here to share my information with other people. So that's a good
Yeah,
sign.
I know it's. I feel like it's a lot better now than it was when I first started out.
Mm,
It was real cliquish back then, but I also feel like there was a lot more outlets for independent artists to get out there and showcase their talent, because there was like literally like showcases every weekend.
mm,
Um, nowadays I don't really hear about it too much, but what is dope to see is a lot of artists among the same age groups collaborating from between Tacoma and Seattle, and even as far as Olympia, and hopping on shows together, putting on projects together, doing a lot of collaborative work, and that's dope to see.
mm-hmm. So like in 2008, were people kind of saying Tacoma music scene, Seattle music scene, or
Yeah,
was it
pretty
everyone's
much.
okay? So it was always kind of separate in a way.
Yeah, even though I was one of the artists that was actually able to break through, because Seattle showed me a lot of love early when I first started. I started doing open mics at UW's. They had a retro night. That was like,
Retro.
yeah. So at the time where I started doing it, it wasn't as highly attended as it is now. But like after a few sessions and I started to build a little following, like it was packed out. And when I first started popping up to the retro nights, it was like Showtime at the Apollo. I was seeing people get booed. I was seeing people get laughed at. Yeah, it wasn't as nice. Like I feel like I went maybe within the last 3 or 4 years just to see how it had elevated and grown. And it's a lot more nice, a lot more, politically correct now. But back then it was ruthless. Yeah.
So do you fall in like a Macklemore's like age range? Like, did you guys like ever cross paths then, or?
No, he's older than I am. Yeah, I think he's like, don't quote me, like around 35, 36, something like that.
Got it.
Yeah. So we didn't really cross paths.
Something that I saw on the news, and then I'm trying to like connect with some of the artists who are doing it. I guess Seattle is doing a gala, not a gala. It's like a gala type deal, but it's like all online. And there's like, it's a concert with like, it's like Macklemore, all these other like Seattle names like Sir Mix-a-Lot. And but the thing is, there's like 10 or 15 artists that I have no idea who they are, but I guess they're like popular like in the 90s or 80s.
Oh, really?
Even.
Oh, they're older artists? I haven't even heard of it, so I couldn't even tell you. Like, I don't know the names to be able to tell you.
Yeah, it's called a benefit event, benefit concert, something like that. And I was just thinking it's weird to me because I see like all these artists working in Seattle, whether it's going to like retro, throwing their own events, or getting connected with different venues. And I feel like it's weird, like for like a Seattle benefit event to not have like up and coming artists. And they do highlight like, Macklemore, but he's not an up and coming artist anymore. He's like
right. Yeah, that is interesting. I'm not sure why that is. A lot of times I think sometimes people expect the powers that be to be putting these shows together to be more familiar or more engaged with the up and coming community than they are. So it could be just a matter of miscommunication. I'm not exactly sure. Because I haven't even heard about it, but I haven't been home in a little bit. So,
so yeah, I was so I listened to your one interview you put out the other day, and they were saying that you're like in Washington right when this coronavirus thing started breaking out. And it was crazy because I recently moved up to Snohomish, and like one of the first cases was like in Snohomish, and I was like, oh, me and my family were like, you know what, this is just going to be like another type flu. It's not going to be a big deal. And then now we're here, and I'm like,
I feel like a lot of us thought that way, and then that's why it spread as fast as it did, because I don't think a lot of people were taking it as serious as they should have, or in taking the necessary precautionary measures early. So then by the time everybody wanted to start wearing their masks and social distancing, it was already like a full-blown pandemic. So yeah.
So I don't hear anything about it on the news or anyone really talking about it. Like, but I feel like the coronavirus is definitely going to be affected during these like riots and protests. We don't hear anything about that. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think it's going to spread and people are just not focusing on that?
I think we're going to see. I do know that, a part of the reason why we're not hearing about it is because everybody's more focused on, social justice and protesting. So people aren't really in the hospital getting tested anymore like they once were when, everybody was just at the house trying to monitor this potential symptoms. Everybody's out, with a different focus now. So I guess we'll know here in a few weeks, because they say once you contract it takes like 14 days for it to actually set in. So I don't know. We'll see.
What are your opinions on Seattle rioting about like all these Black Lives Matter things? I see on like the social media, I see like it's a majority of the crowd is kind of like white. So I thought that was like interesting. Like, I guess it's so support for the Black community, but then other things you see like memes or things of influencers just taking pictures and fake spray painting or fake nailing up boards and stuff. So like, it's just a big mumbo jumbo of everything together, And I just feel like Minneapolis is like on the other side of the board. But do you think Seattle should be protesting, or?
I think that Martin Luther King said it best, is like injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I don't have a problem necessarily with anybody protesting or trying to show different ways to contribute to the overall goal, which is, trying to get social justice across all 50 states and across the globe. I think, just like anything, the pursuit of justice evolves over time. So whereas it was a lot more divided in the outrage, I think now it's finally gotten to a point, or it's finally grown to a point where a lot of white people are taking ownership and are taking accountability for the privilege that they have and the things that they allow to pass through as normal. And so I think that's why that contributes to a big part of why you have such a diverse crowd out there protesting for the same thing now. In protests, man, any pursuit of justice has a lot of moving parts. So it's not one specific thing that's going to carry us to the promised land. You know what I mean? So the protest is an important part, because that's what grabs the ears of the legislators and the government officials, that make them sit down and go, okay, we have to turn an ear to this now, because it's impacting our bottom line. It's impacting our way of life. And so we have to listen to these people at some point. And so, I think we're far from the work being done. So it's like, once we get their attention, and once we can get in these boardrooms and we can get in these caucuses and have these conversations about actionable items that we can put into action moving forward, it's like, okay, now that's the next step. And how do we proceed in that direction? So I guess to address your question, even though it didn't happen directly in Seattle, I think there's been histories of it happening at some point everywhere. And it was just one of those things where the Minnesota case with George Floyd happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and had everybody across the map saying, okay, enough is enough. Like, it's time to really get out here and make some noise and stand up for what we believe in, and let them know this is not okay. We're not going to accept this any longer.
For sure. It's definitely a combination of everything, whether it's the guy that was running like on that jog and he got shot by those white guys. And
Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah. Whether it's the actual quarantine, being stuck in for multiple months, it's just everyone's heated.
I think that contributes a lot to it too, because in looking at the differences, I was just having a conversation with my friends about this the other day, and looking at the differences between like the Ferguson scenario and now, because a lot of us felt like that Ferguson situation was going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back. But a lot of people were still in fear of losing their jobs, still having to go to work, and still trying to find times throughout the day to be able to protest. Since we've all been on quarantine, nobody's been going to work, everybody's been in the house, we all got time today. Everybody got time. So now everybody's finding different ways to contribute, because they can focus all their time and attention to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that people were not out of work at that point.
People were still trying to balance between work life and not wanting to lose their job and not wanting to be too radical. So, people still have mouths to feed. But since the pandemic has happened, everybody's been home for the last 3-4 months anyway. So everybody had time.
Dang. So how is your music schedule changed? Because I see that you're like still going to the studio, but is like everyone there like really cautious, or how is that all working out?
Yeah, super cautious. I mean, it's a private studio, so it's not like open to everybody, just the people that are involved with the studio with the studio label. But I mean, it's changed everything. It's changed the dynamic for everybody I know that's been trying to release music and create music during this time. You've had to change your schedules, you've had to adapt to, whereas we would do a press release and pull up to the radio stations and, pull up to the podcast sites. Like now everything's gone virtual. So it's just trying to figure out a way to stay creative and to stay present and to find different types of content to keep people engaged without ignoring what's going on. Because, act like we don't see what's going on when it's every time you open your phone up, every time you turn the TV on, this is what's present. And, living, our life every day. I live my life every day as a Black man. So it's for me to act like I don't see what's going on or to be impacted or influenced by it, would be neglectful at best. I mean, at the least.
It's weird because I feel like at this point, if you did release if anyone was like to release an album right now and didn't mention things that were going on, even if the album was like shelved for a few months or years,
it would come off as tone deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, nobody, that's the tough part. Like, it's even slowed the way, like, even like the feature work that I've done on like the Joell Ortiz album and whatnot. Like, I've even had to slow down how I've even had to slow down how I campaign for it and post about it, because I just know that that's not what people want to hear right now.
Mm.
You know, that's so you got to be sensitive to the fact. And, you know, this is an important time. This is a time to amplify our voices and talk about what counts. And I'm not against that. Like, I'm all for it. So, you know, I feel like everything happens in its right time, and, you know, things will come back around and become a more opportune time for me to get back to campaigning for the music and keeping people tapped in.
Yeah, for sure. I've at first I felt weird about the protest, especially because like I have to like make sure my families are fine. Like I don't want to go to the protest or I get hurt or like I bring back the virus or something and then like infect my
Right.
family. So I'm just
100%.
like, but I am like a black guy. So and like literally the other day it made me think about these protests because so like I live in this like area called like it's like a secluded area in Snohomish,
Mm-hmm.
and so we like go for walks like every day. It's like a night. You don't have to worry about anything. It's like in the woods. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this like white guy pulled up to us like 2 days ago in a
Mm-hmm.
Cadillac, and the sun was starting to set. So I guess like it was. I guess I could understand his worry kind of, but he like came
Mm-hmm.
up to us in his car, pulled up to this, and was like, "Do you live here?" And we're like, "What?" And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
Show me what house you're in." And we're like, "No, we're not going to do that." Like he was like,
See.
oh, and then like he could tell that we were offended and that we actually lived here, even though like I've definitely seen this guy in the Cadillac in the neighborhood before. But he
Mm-hmm.
was like, he marked it up to, "Oh, these are unsettling times," like. But it's just weird that I feel that racial tensions are going to be more divided during these protests, but in the sense that the racist people are you're going to actually see them, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be more blatant, and the people who actually care, like the white people that are actually showing up to these protests, you're going to see that
Mm-hmm.
those are the ones that actually care about us as well, so I
Right.
think
I agree with you. It's gonna be very telling for both sides.
mm,
In the case of that guy, I mean, and those in the like, it's a lot of people that just don't know how to mind their business. You know what I mean? If they're not stumbling upon somebody in the act of committing a crime and they're just too minding their business like you guys probably were,
mm-hmm.
keep it pushing. I don't know the need. I don't understand personally that need for like the permit patties and the Karens always want to get involved in situations that just aren't an immediate threat to them. Like
mm,
I don't know. That's beyond my psyche, but
yeah,
that's unfortunate that you guys even had to deal with that,
yeah.
especially right now. Because it's like, are you living under a rock? Do you not see like everything that's going on? Are you just that insensitive to what's going on? I don't
Mm.
know.
It's crazy, man, but yeah, I think that things are going to change for sure. I don't know if it's going to happen right away or not, but I think
Mm-hmm.
this will definitely be like a whole thing that is for the history books.
Yeah, definitely. It's man, it's some of the most historic times I think we're seeing in our generation, and even in speaking with older people that have from the generations of like the original protests and the civil rights movement, and just seeing how the same issues are still present. It's just like it almost feels like even when you look at the pictures and videos that have been taken from now and then, it's like it's the same scenarios, just the clothes have been updated. Like literally, and it's sad because you think we're in an age of information and technology, social media, everything is so prevalent in 2020, but we're still dealing with these age old um, social understandings and limitations or limited mindsets for people. And I'm just glad that we're in an age where everybody's bold enough to say enough is enough. And
Hmm.
I just hope that people don't lose this energy, like, because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So there's still cases that are ongoing all over the world. Like even in the midst of the riots and
Yeah.
protests happening, like there's still new cases popping up every day. So this is not something that's just like, okay, when George Floyd's case sees justice, we're done. Or Manuel Ellis in Tacoma that just happened.
Hmm.
Um, when that case sees justice, that it's over. Like this is going to continue to be an ongoing thing, and I think that we have to change our mindsets in terms of how willing we are to be informed of the process of legislation and the processes of our local government, who's in place, who's doing what, and making sure that we're supporting initiatives that directly impact our community for not just now, but for the long term.
Mhm. For sure.
All of that's very important.
Yeah, people need to like read up on what these protests are actually about and like what changes they actually want to see, not just Black Lives Matter. These just protesting. You have to know what you're protesting about, the changes you
Right.
actually want to see taking place, you know?
A prime example I saw, I don't know if you happen to get it, but there was like a chain email link going around on Instagram that was like pre-filled out for people to email their local government and
Mm,
or the local government from Minneapolis to make sure that you're petitioning for a manslaughter charge. But I was like, if you're doing your research and you're keeping up with the case, you understand this is it's a murder charge that we should be going for.
mhm.
And I know a lot of people that didn't even bother to read the pre-constructed email all the way through, and they missed that part. So I was pointing it out to a lot of people. So with all of the emotions and everything running high, it's like very important that you still take time and read everything through, especially if you're going to attach your name to it.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they release any new phones during this time, you want to make sure that you're reading up all the on the security details and everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, figure out what's going on. Don't just
Yeah,
agree to
man.
anything.
For sure, man. Well, what is some advice they have for Tacoma artists and artists in Seattle?
um, Advice I have is just stay diligent. You know what I mean? Like the game is going to test you in a lot of ways. And if this is something that your heart's really set on, you just have to learn to embrace the journey. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the wrong understanding, and that's that if we do A, then B should happen.
Mm,
If we do C, then D should happen. That's not always the case. You could be doing a lot of things that are setting you up for the future that because you're not seeing immediate results from, you think things aren't working. And that could be the complete opposite. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to put those hours in. Don't be afraid to get out there and mess up because you're going to learn a lot. You can plan all day long. That's not going to eliminate the possibility of error. Like
mm.
you're still going to mess up at some point. So in knowing that, be fearless. Jump out there, try new ideas, see what works, make note of what doesn't work so that you don't make those same mistakes again, and continue to push, collaborate. I've been seeing a lot of artists collaborating, which is good. And also, don't take things personal in terms of collaboration opportunities. Where sometimes ego gets in the way, and where you may see
Yeah.
yourself in terms of skill wise or in terms of fan base wise may not match or be a mutually beneficial situation with the person that you aspire to collaborate with. And it's not a bad thing. You just have to step outside of your own ego, you know what I mean, and understand that it also has to make business sense too. And so if you approach it that way, I think you'll be fine. Like a lot of us, get out of the understanding that it is a business as well because we're so in love with the art. But I think as long as you stay cognizant of all those things, you'll be fine.
For sure. It's definitely a grind no matter who you are, you know.
Yeah,
Success
don't
doesn't
cut
come
any
overnight.
corners.
Mm-mm.
Nah, success does not come overnight. And even oftentimes where we feel like, oh, we haven't seen this person before, they must have just got started. 9 times out of 10, this person's been grinding for the last 10 years. We just get hip to them now because they've reached a big enough platform where you can't ignore them now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it just takes time, man.
For sure. Well, once you're back in Seattle, whether it's tour or anything, I'd love you to stop by my studio and we'll do a full-on interview. You know, my
Oh, yeah, love to.
my goal for my podcast overall is to end up being more like a mixture between a Joe Rogan and a Breakfast Club, where we're talking about hip hop, but it can end up being 3 hours long. You know, things like that.
Right, yeah, yeah. Depending on where the conversation heads. I'm all for
Yes.
it. I'm going to definitely stop by, man, and check you out when I get back in town, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate this. And what's the easiest way to reach you?
I try to keep it easy, man. All one-stop shop. That's Blakk Soul Music. That's BLAKK Soul Music. All across the board, you can find me.
Awesome. Well, this is the Nast podcast with
Blakk Soul.
There we go. Thank you so much and stay safe.
All right. Thank you for having me.